a few years ago when I started with Linux, I had fully committed. I wiped my Windows machine out and I installed Linux. Real reason was because I didn't have some type of code that Windows required me to do a dual boot, and I wasn't even familiar with virtual machines back then. So fully dove into Linux, and I didn't use my file explorer, right? Like the file explorer, the GUI, you know what I'm talking about, right? File explorer, right? Just sacrifice this, right? For this. It's hard in the beginning, but eventually it just becomes second nature, you know what I mean? Oh, thank you, Mr. Night Strike BG. Yeah, we cooking now. We cooking, but we can't cook without all the fire that you guys bring to the table, right? I love my audience. This channel's been up for 6 months. It's not my first attempt at YouTube, right? So it's not like I just, grew fast. I've been trying to do digital media content for, you know, well over 10 years, right? I always wanted to be like rock star, but teaching, I noticed teaching was my thing. I started teaching piano before I got into tech, right? I used to teach kids privately piano. And I noticed two things is that they never practiced, right? Um, and they always listen, right? So you can listen to all the knowledge you want all day long, but if you don't go and practice, you're going to be doing the same lesson over and over. You know what I mean? So basically learning Linux, right? Let's see. You can go and look for some Linux basics. There's like cheat sheets all over the internet, right? And what I would recommend is getting a notepad and literally just like writing out the commands, the ones that are going to be most favorable to your typical day-to-day life, right? Because you're still probably learning all the different concepts that are around as far as, IT and cyber and coding and whatnot. So it's like, what's the point of learning commands if you're not going to use them, But things like navigating your computer, creating documents, your CD, your LS, your touch, your nanos, your Vims, if you're fancy about it, right? Things like that. Let's see. There is, back when I did the Odin project years ago, they recommended some Bash basics. Let me see if I can find it. Odin project, Bash basics. Command line basics. Highly recommend this. This one, it walks you through, some of the basics that you should know. And then there's actually an assignment. This is what I appreciate about the Odin project is that they actually have assignments for you. And then I think at the bottom, they even have some additional resources. Look, flashcards, right? Things like that. So it's like wax on, wax off type stuff, right? Like you just have to know how to do this stuff. You need to be familiar with the basics of navigating your terminal. And it's not just so we can look cool, right? It's because the tools that we use in tech and coding and cyber, they're going to be not GUI based. So you need to be able to navigate within that environment, understanding how to read a synopsis, right? Like if you were to do, I don't know if man works on Windows. Let's do a man on let's say grep. Yep, we don't have man. Let me go ahead and pull up a virtual machine. Let's actually do let's see, it's virtual. Let's do VirtualBox. What advice would I give for start? My first thing would be consistent in anything, right? Because you have all these different broad topics that you don't even know which one you want to go into, right? But something that you can do consistently is just apply yourself. So if you want to experiment with coding one day and you want to experiment with AI another day and you want to experiment with cyber another day, and all those things, the most consistent thing was you putting in the time. And that's going to build a sense of discipline, right? Put in, right, like an hour a day, right? Like you can put in 24 hours in a day and be like, I'm going to be the best, but the next day you're going to be burnt out. And at the end of that 24 hours, it was still only one day of practice that you put in. But if you put in like 1, 2, hell, even maybe 4 hours a day, every day, or at least 5 days out the week, practicing your craft, you're just going to do really good for yourself. So I wouldn't advise you to stick to one area because I don't know you, right? You may not even know your interests yet, but building the practice is something that I see a lot of students lack. Get a mentor. That helped me. Yeah, there you go, dude. There you go. And if you go with courses or like if you go with boot camps, or if you even go with like any type of memberships or Patreons that people offer, at the end of the day, right, like you're getting some value from a person who's where you want to be, right? So, yeah, man, just practice, practice, practice. Practice is absolutely everything. So let's go ahead and pull up. Let me see this network settings on this machine. Let's see what type of internet access are we going to have. So this is on an internal network, all right? So this would mean that I would have to set up my own IPs and stuff. Typically, if I just want to get going, I typically either use NAT or bridged. Bridged is probably the easiest to set up, in my opinion, if you want to get two machines to talk to each other. So here we got a VPN. Well, I just named it VPN. We can name it whatever we want. Let's actually just name it again. Let's call this machine 1, VM1. There we go. Yep, on bridge. Let's come over here. Let's make this a VM2. We want to make sure it's also on that bridged adapter. Great. Okay, let's see. What type of RAM do we have on these machines? So on the first machine, we have 2 gigs of RAM. Okay. And then on the second machine, we also have, oh, we have 8 gigs there. Okay. I don't think I need that much. So let's go ahead and put this to 4. All right. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, right? But we're talking about Bash and Linux and whatnot. I figure we can just spin them up. I know that with Windows, you can spin up your own Linux machine. I personally haven't found too much flavor in that for me to get into the practice of doing that. I've just gotten so used to spinning up virtual machines, and I like the feel of the Linux environment as well, you know what I mean? And, you know, sometimes I get comments saying, ho, you use Windows, but the reason I use Windows is because when I first started teaching at boot camps, I had a full-on Linux machine, and all of my students were on Windows. So there was like this gap, right? There's this gap of, well, you know, you come here and you type all these things and you're like, cool story, bro, but I can't do that on my Windows machine, right? Unless I go and install Git Bash, or if you even use PowerShell, the Linux aliases in there are very limited. So I went back, right, to Windows. I actually had to pay for a new license, right, to get a new Windows copy. And now I keep it so that when I go and I show people things, I can bring them, I can start from where they are to bring them where I am. And if you guys haven't joined our Discord yet, be sure to join our Discord. Typically, I leave it in the descriptions of videos. Let me see. I can probably add it here. Let me go grab that link for you guys. This is the link. Let me go ahead and put that into the chat for real this time. All right. Christopher Cahal, man, welcome my member. One of my 2 members, Mr. Christopher Cahal. I appreciate all the love and support that you've been doing. What does a bridge adapter do? I know devices can ping each other on the same network. So what a bridge adapter does is it connects your virtual machine to your host machine. That is like, you know, this one, like the one that I'm holding up, you know what I'm saying? So the hypervisor or your virtual box is going to create fake virtual hardware for your virtual machine. So that means it has a network adapter, and that network adapter typically wants to be connected to a network, and you can make it to where it's completely separated from your host machine, which is pretty trippy because it's inside the host machine, right? That would be something like an internal network, right? But if you want to bridge your host machine to your virtual machine, if you want to bridge them together, you use the bridge adapter. And your virtual box will essentially set up the network adapter to have an IP address that is an IP address and the same subnet to talk to your host machine and the private network that your host machine is connected to, right? So it can even talk to your router, right? That's how we have internet access, right? Because I'm on a bridge network, I'm basically treating my VM like just any other device that's within my private network. So if you're downloading a vulnerable machine to practice pen testing on, you know, and you connect it to your bridge network, just beware, right? Because I used to get a question pretty often that was like, can my VM talk to my host machine? Like if someone were to break into the VM, can they break into my computer? Well, if they're connected on the same network, can 2 machines talk, right? If they're not able to talk, then the attacker would have to find a way to escape the VM. So they would be looking for some type of exploit on the actual virtualization software, which is much more sophisticated and advanced. When did you start going live? Today, my dude. Today. I didn't want to like announce it because I've actually spent the first hour just trying to get everything connected and the chat, making sure it's popping up, all my windows and set up right. Just it's very new for me. Next one, right? I'll announce it, right? That way I have a little bit more experience under my belt. Thanks to you guys being here right now. I appreciate all of the conversation you guys are bringing to the table. Let's see. Sim, been working on like Splunk. Man, I never really got into Sim, you know? Like I was always more of a code guy, you know, but lately I've been seeing how code is basically being, you know, made obsolete as far as what we can do with AI. So I have been looking to broaden my SOC analyst skills, and I know that's actually something that a lot of people who are in cyber like to do. They like the minority report, right? Like you got all the graphs and you see the maps and pew pew pew, right? So I think that stuff. I think that stuff's really cool. I just haven't really put the time into it like that to be like, oh yeah, let's go talk about that, right? Let's go handle that, right? But you know, the thing is that some people, you know, they might see me as like I know everything, but I don't, right? Like I'm not no gray beard, you know what I'm saying? I'm still a pretty young guy, and really what I appreciate about doing this channel and you guys is that I'm able to go learn things and make sure that I learn it well enough that I can explain it to someone who may not be as far as advanced as I am. You can do a lot with Python alone. Discovery, that is so true, right? Especially with, you know, all the different libraries that are out there. It can interact directly with the network layer of your computer. It's really easy to use Python. And the thing is that sometimes people say things like, should I learn coding if I want to get into cybersecurity? And, you know, does anyone need to learn coding in general anymore? I know the prime time again is probably going to hate me for saying that, but it's pretty tough to be like, I'm going to sit down and write code line by line by line, and then, you know, you can just prompt it the whole time. So it's almost defeating. You see what I'm saying? There's no, it's almost like the purpose has been stripped from us. So, you know, I would say focus on what tools you need. Okay, so if you're looking to do port scanning, yeah, you could go write your own port scanner, but are you looking to code a port scanner or are you looking to scan some ports? You see what I mean? So if you're just looking to get the job done, grab the tool. If the tool doesn't exist and this is a new type of job, then yeah, some coding experience would be really great for you because then you'd be able to know what type of logic is necessary to prompt or to write, you know, whatever code you need. Do you have a Discord server or some type of community where you can announce your lives? You know, man, I am so intimidated by going live the first time here that I didn't think to announce it, right? I was just trying to catch it on the moment, on the whim. But let's see here. Let me put in the Discord link for you guys if you're new here. Let me see. I actually have it here. Maybe I can pin it. Is that possible? Pin message. Boom. There you go. All right, so while we're talking about coding, our Discord's like it's pretty slow, dude. Like no one really talks in there, and I get it. You know, we're all nerds and we're kind of shy and whatnot, you know. But I wanted to really help get the conversation and the engagement going. So here I have a this little Discord app that I whipped up. All right, so you can come into any channel and you're gonna just type in Crone. You can do a Crone help first off, and I have this Discord app that's going to basically, you know, like walk you through a storyline where you infiltrate or you exploit this fictional company called NextCorp. Okay, and it starts off from reconnaissance to, you know, web application hacking, and then it goes into some code deciphering, then it goes into exploitation, privilege escalation, exfiltration, and then cleanup, right? It's not like elaborate like a CTF, but it's the questions are meant to be like a process, like a storyline, because, you know, you can see test questions and they're like random, right? It's like, what is raid? And then the next question is, what is tailgating? There's really like no connection. You're not really seeing how it's implemented in a real life scenario. So this is very basic, right? It's version 0. My biggest concern was just making sure that the dang thing works, right? That I can actually get multiple people to play. And when it first went live, it didn't work. There was this crazy bug where the first person to play, which was always me, could play just fine. But the moment a second, third person got in, the data persistence was broken, and I had to do all these checks. And it's very basic, small. I'll actually show you guys the code here coming up, but let me go ahead and show you a bit about what this actually does, right? So you're going to go ahead and do a cron begin, and you will get a DM from this lovely looking dude here in the gray. And basically his job is to answer all of your questions. So I already have some progress in my storyline. And if you come back to pick up, you would type in story and it'll give you a question, okay? So here we see you drop a reverse shell in their startup scripts. What's your move? So how do we drop a reverse shell into the startup script? So obviously SQL map, right? Not going to be doing anything with SQL if we're doing reverse shells. Adding executable permissions, right? I'm trying to make it obvious for you, right? So that you can pick out the right answer. Now, here we see, number 4. So we would choose number 4. And if you want to know more about it, you can do a cron Y, and it'll explain shortly, briefly, why this works. So if you add a reverse shell to startup scripts, this is a classic persistence method, right? It's effective for maintaining access, which is typically what the attacker is looking to do the first time that they go in. They just want to make sure that they can stay there. Now, looking into the command, right, we see that they're creating some type of TCP connection, creating an interactive bash from their IP on port 4444. And 4444 is, if you ever see that running on your machine, you might want to go grab an extra pair of underwear. It's not a good port to see open. Okay, so that's the answer, and you can use the Y to figure out why this works. And there's 64 questions. When you answer 8 questions correctly, you move up in role, right? You can actually see we have Mr. Rel. Shout out to Rel for already beating all of it and getting Root Phantom, right? He completed all 64 questions. And then here you can see currently I am a bite slicer. So it's just a little bit fun, right? Just to kind of get some engagement going on. All right, so let's see. We got another chat coming in here. I'll make sure to pop up this code here on this Discord app so you guys can see it a bit. But let's see what we got here going on. Your project videos are really good. Thank you. Please upload more in the future as they help and gain real life experience. Dude, I really appreciate that. I saw a gap in the cybersecurity YouTube where it was basically like, I'm either seeing like the most sophisticated hack explained from like a news report, or I'm seeing the SOS, right? The same old shtick, right? It's like, what is DOS? What is sudo? And all these like, very basic things to grab beginners. And I get that, right? Like, we're content creators, we're trying to pull in an audience. But when you want to get the dope stuff, right? It's behind a paywall. And even behind the paywalls, I feel, right? Like, putting it nicely, it was still SOS. It was still the same old shtick, right? It's like, some Metasploitable, right? It was really hard, I feel like, to find like the good stuff that we all want to know. And of course there's lines, right? Like, there's lines I just can't cross on my videos, right? Like, I can't talk about and show you some of the things that could potentially, ruin my YouTube channel, right? Everything's educational purposes, entertainment purposes only, and I try to really make sure that I show it in a way that's ethical for you guys to practice. Oh, let's see. Heard this guy this morning at Naval Cybersecurity School complaining about Windows requiring Windows 365. Oh, man. I mean, Windows has been doing some stuff lately that I don't really appreciate, right? Like, when you start up using Windows, you end up being prompted to create and log in on your own personal computer with a Microsoft account. And as a person who may not be as cybersecurity aware or, cautious, they may put in a weak password, not realizing that they just made their Microsoft account online with a weak password. To make it worse, they then try to default you to using OneDrive. So now all of your hard drive information is being sent to OneDrive, protected by some weak password that the user may not even know, they're even putting online. So that's like one of my biggest sticks with them right now. Let's see. Let's see. Your videos are the better cybersecurity videos out there. Humbled, bro. Humbled. Really appreciate that. Let's see. I'm kind of new to cybersecurity. I'm studying IT right now, but taking some Coursera certs on the side to get up to speed. There you go, dude. There you go. It's always the longest answer. Hey, man, we're trying to get some conversation going, trying to give you some value out of this live stream, right? All the rest cybersecurity videos are just shilling random adverts for the newest certification. Man, I am so like overwhelmed by the number of certificates that are out there. And sometimes I look at them like, man, I want that cert. That would look nice on my resume. You know what I mean? And then you look at the price and you're like, man, do I really want to study, pay hundreds of dollars, study, go take some exams so I can have this, pretty badge on my resume? And the thing is that if you're really looking seriously into getting a specific type of role, which means you probably have some experience and practice under your belt, I would say go look at the jobs you want, look at the certificates that they require, and then go get those certificates, right? Like it's like the easiest way to check all the boxes that they're looking for. Are CompTIA certificates really worth it? So when I did boot camp, not only would you get the boot camp when I taught boot camps, not only would they give the boot camp certificates, they would also give a CompTIA certification test voucher with their certificate. So you pass the boot camp, you get the shiny gold medal, and then you get a certificate for CompTIA. And the thing is that they would give a Security Plus CompTIA voucher. And the way I saw it is CompTIA is recommending that you have 2 years experience before you go take that test. So now when you go take the test, you pass, you can then go out into the job market and apply and say, I have 2 years experience and a CompTIA certification. Who's looking for some help? You see what I mean? In those boot camps, we're basically taking 2 years of experience and we're like shoving it down the students' throats in 6 months. And it's hard. It's like really hard, right? It's like drinking out of a what are the things on the street, right? The fire hydrants, right? It's like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant. So I would say it's worth it if you have the experience. If you're like, you don't even know how to navigate your terminal, I would say get some experience under your belt, right? Try to actually do some projects on your own. Make sure this is actually something that you're going to want to do, because what you're going to find with the Security Plus certification or the test is that it's not very technical. It's not. It's more like very wordy. And it's like if you read the question wrong, you'll get the answer wrong, right? There are quite a bit of questions that have acronyms, right? And typically they'll lay out like on the multiple choice questions like, TCP, UDP, and then they'll just throw something out random out there like HTTP and I don't know, SSH. And they'll say which one is used to connect to computers securely. Well, if you know TCP, UDP are more of like the transit protocol, and you know that HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, is used for the web, SSH is like the obvious answer, right? So it wasn't like, which nmap command do you use? So it's worth it if you have some experience under your belt and you're really looking to get an entry-level job, right? Let's see. I watched your Deceive Honeypot video, and one thing I was struggling with was getting an OpenAI API. Do you think it's possible to make a project like Deceive but using locally hosted or Gemini API? Yeah. Of course. In fact, on that Deceive Splunk repository in their config file, they actually have an option for you to enable if you want to use Gemini or Claude. I think they even have some other model that they support. So yeah, you can totally use any model that they have listed in that config file. If you're having trouble reading the config file and knowing what to change, or you feel like intimidated by it, I don't blame you. Config files are always scary. You can copy paste it into an AI model and be like, hey, how do I enable this? And there's no shame in that, because next time you'll know. All right. I can't watch. I'm supposed to be working. Oh, man. Well, it'll be up for later, right? It'll be up for later. Okay, so we were talking about the fact that there's all these tools, and as a beginner, you may not even know which tool that you should be learning about. And I had a question early on: what should I do if I'm starting? And my advice was just practice, right? You have all these different options. Don't feel like you have to stick with one, and that is like you're married to it, right? You can just pick one and go with it. So here we have basically a grouping in Kali. So if you're looking to do information gathering, boom, these are some tools, right? Go grab the coffee, pick one, just go through it, right? If you're looking for vulnerability analysis, boom, here we see there's Nikto, there's Nmap, right? There's ZenMap, which is I think like a GUI version of Nmap, right? We have web application analysis, and you see it's just long, man. There's so much to go through. There's so much to learn, but in all of this, there is a commonality, right? Like in all of this, there is a commonality. Let me go ahead and pull up Nikto, for example. We're not going to use it, but I'm going to show you something here. Does this have a man page on it? It sure does. So we have our manual, and it talks about everything that it does, the different options that are available, right? If you're looking for the TLDR on it, you can run your help on it. So let's do a Nikto-H, and then they will have basically the shortened options that you can do here. Then you can go on the internet, look up, common uses of it. And this is basically, how you spend your time if you're looking to just find out what do you enjoy. Okay, let's see. I didn't notice that. I'll try that. Dude, I know. Sometimes it's like it's so close, you know what I mean? But, when I saw that, I was like, man, how come no one told me that everything's just grouped together, Okay, let's see. When using VirtualBox, is the NAT network setting safe if I'm just practicing Linux commands and stuff? Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, because you only want to isolate your machine if you're downloading something that's vulnerable, right? Like if you're going to VulnHub and you don't know what they're going to run when you turn on that virtual machine, then you want to put it on an internal network or a LAN segment, depending on your virtualization software. Right? So notice I'm on a 10.02, eh? All right, so let me come here. Let me zoom in. Let me IPA. And we have a 10.02. All right, so my host machine is a 192.168. With NAT, this machine is a 10.0. Okay, so you would think since they're on different subnets that they won't be able to communicate, right? So let's come over. Let's try to ping our 234. That is the host machine once again. And look, we're getting responses back. Right? Two different subnets. They're still talking. Why? Because there's a translation that's happening. Basically, NAT is taking the 10.02 and translating it into a 192.168, right? And there's some benefits to that as far as which way things can communicate. So let me come over into PowerShell. Let's see, PowerShell, and then we're going to try and ping our VM. So the VM can ping the host machine through NAT, right? So let's come in and let's ping the 10.0.2.15. And notice, look, can't do it. So it's only one way, right? Now responses will have to come through from the internet, and that's where the hypervisor or your virtual machine manager will do that translation for you. Okay, it's basically acting as a router on that hypervisor. Okay, yeah, Control L actually does not clear it. It just moves things down. So here you see I have the scroll bar, right? And then let's do a Control L, and look at the scroll bar. It's still there, my dude. It's still there. If you do it clear, it's gone. So that's the difference. And it's whatever though, Okay, let's see. Wait, what? I know, right? I saw that too. I was like, dude, I was lied to. Okay, let's see. Imagine I would just spin up an Ubuntu and start practicing before. Yes, for sure. All right, let's see, man. Let's see. Man, how long have we been up? We've been at it for about 49 minutes, man. And it's been so much fun. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been given so far. Again, join the Discord. I kept talking to you guys about the code. Looks like we had some time left over in these last 10 minutes I'm going to give. Let's see. Let's come over to a PowerShell. I'm in the desktop in my Gnar coding. There's a Discord folder in there. Let's come into Gnar hack. All right. Let's code. Hopefully there's no .m files that are going to be shown. Close that. Oh, don't look. Okay, let's close the game data. There's answers there. All right. Bot.py. This is the power of the Discord app that we have right now. A lot of it was vibe coded, right? But it does its job. Now, something that I want to point out to you, if there's someone here who's more of an experienced developer, you'll actually see that the data persistence is happening in literal files. Like, it's not like a database, you know? It's because I wasn't looking to build something like extravagant in a full stack if people aren't going to use it. So with this type of structure, I'm imagining maybe like 30, 50 people can play at a time before we might start seeing some problems. And at that point, you know, there's demand. That's when I'll go add a database in. But for now, people's progress, their points, and the shuffle file is used because the answers or the options for the answers are shuffled every single time that they're shown to you. Okay. So basically, you know, we're looking at the commands that are available from Discord. You can see that we have this ability to use the library and say, hey, this next block of code is going to be a command. And then here is the begin, right, where you see the little intro message, and then it goes ahead and shows a question. Now, something I like to do, you know, I know not everyone here is a coder, so to speak, but if you see show question here, you can hold control and click on it, and it'll take you there. It'll take you there. So you can see what is being used. Notice that this function is using get shuffle text. So boom, we can come in here. And it's a nice way to navigate instead of you like scrolling through, you know what I mean? All right, will I be posting this live? Yeah. I'll post it live. I'll post it live. I don't think I said anything too stupid in this live stream, so I think we should be good for me to just go ahead and release it, right? Let's see. We have modulo being used. That way you only get your badges after every 8 levels, right? Modulo is a pretty common concept that you'll see if you're learning programming or coding. And as far as the color, basically every question has an object of, you know, the options, how many points it's worth, as well as the color for the role that you'll get. And let's see. Anything else that's really cool here? You can see the score command. The why, right? You can go and see why the answer was correct. And it's just a little fun thing that we can do to try and get this Discord more interactive for everybody, right? All right, let's see. We've been up for 52 minutes. I don't think there's anything else that's too interesting here on this file, right? The hosting, right? So getting it deployed. Oh man, deployment, dude. No, how come no one talks about deployment? You know what I'm saying? Because when I first did my MIT full stack web development boot camp back in like, you know, 2020, deployment was the hardest part for the final project. And, you know, we were kind of just left to figure it out on our own, and it was a pain, bro. It was really hard. Basically what happens is you have all this stuff working locally for you. And then the moment you get it live, you start seeing errors that you've never seen before. You start having to configure and use menus that you're not familiar with, and it can just be a headache. So I guess if you're ever in a position where you're deploying your project and you feel like you're really struggling, you know, you're not alone in that. Let's see, any other questions? Will AI replace programmers and cybersecurity workers? I mean, no one knows the future, my man, you know? So I would say it's made it easier for people to become programmers and cybersecurity workers. The other day, I was using Grok to walk me through looking for a cross-site request forgery vulnerability on a WordPress plugin. It told me how to download the plugin, how to host it locally or serve it locally for myself, where to look in the code, and it was crazy. It literally just walked me through the entire process. You see what I'm saying? And to me, that's awesome, but I also understand that the risk it puts as far as increasing my competition. You see what I mean? So I think it'll make it more competitive because now more people can do more things, right? And so now you have to do even more to stand out. But as far as like full on replacement, I don't know if we're ever going to be at a point where we're just going to fully trust AI to run our show. You know what I mean? Even in the book Life 3.0, which I highly recommend you guys check it out. Here, let me go ahead and put that up real quick. Really good book. It talks about what happens when AI takes over, and it starts off with a chapter of Prometheus, which is this AI which is so powerful they don't even want to release it to the internet, but then they do, and then it takes over the government, and people don't know. And in the end, right, like TLDR, there's still people who guard the AI, and then of course the AI ends up socially engineering. It ends up social engineering the guards, right? Of all things, right? Everyone wants to learn hacking. No one wants to learn social engineering. When even the smartest system in this book, you know, does social engineering. So there's a lot of power in that. Let's see. I tried creating a simple multiplayer game in Godot and couldn't figure out how to deploy it. Dude, yeah, it's tough, dude. It's tough. It's tough. You know, I would say get a VPS and just run it the same way you did locally, right? But now you have this exposed public machine. Now you have to figure out how to make sure that, you know, it doesn't get brute force attacked and all that other stuff like that. Let's see. We are on our last 2 minutes, last minute and a half. I appreciate everyone coming through, helping me pull up some conversation on the whim. Next live, I'll make a post actually on YouTube. Maybe we can even chat about it in Discord of a time that will work better for everybody, because I know there were some people who were working, they couldn't watch the live stream. So maybe we can find a time that a majority of people would appreciate and be able to actually come and enjoy the stream with. With that, guys, much love, much support. I wish you guys the best, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.